I welcome all of you to another video on the financial institutions or the financial institutions. So in this video, we will discuss two important aspects. One is the structure of the financial system, and second is a classification of the financial institutions. So two things we are going to discuss. The first is the structure of the financial system, and second, a classification of the financial institutions. So let us come to the first thing, that's the structure of the financial system. And here, here we will explain the structure of the Indian financial system. Okay, so financial system is broadly, financial system is broadly classified into two. One is financial institutions and next is financial market. Because you know that in every financial system, there are two things. One is financial market and second, financial institutions. Okay, so financial institutions, we are going to again classify the financial institutions into regulatory financial institutions. So this is the next classification: regulatory financial institutions, then intermediaries, non-intermediaries, and others. So financial institutions are classified into four: regulatory, intermediaries, non-intermediaries, and others. Okay, then financial market, we are going to classify into organized and unorganized. So financial market are classified into organized and unorganized. Now, under organized market, we have two segments. One is money market and the capital market. Money market and capital market. Money market is again classified into three: market for call money market, market for treasury bills, and market for CDs, certificate of deposits, and CBs and others. And so therefore money market is again classified into three: call money market, treasury bill market, market for CDs, CBs, and others. Okay, now the capital market is classified into three: stock market, debt market, and derivative market. Capital market is again classified into three: stock market, debt market, and derivative market. And here again, the money market and capital market, they are again classified into two: primary market and secondary market. Primary market and secondary market. So we will explain each one of these in detail in the coming videos. But you just understand that financial system is broadly classified into two: financial institutions and financial market. Financial markets are divided into two: organized and unorganized. Financial institutions are of four kinds: regulatory, intermediary financial institutions, non-intermediary financial institutions, and the others, means those who are not included in the three categories. Then financial market is classified into organized, unorganized. So unorganized market does not have further classifications, but organized market is again classified into money market, capital market. Money market is a market for short-term fund, and capital market is a market for long-term fund. That distinction already you might know. And money market is again classified into three: call money market, treasury bill market, and CDs, CBs, and other market. Capital market has three important components: stock market, debt market, derivative market. All these markets have two broad parts, that's primary market, secondary market. Primary market is a market where issues are made for the first time, or from where companies and governments collect fresh fund from the primary market. But secondary market ensures the liquidity, because the stocks and bonds which you have bought from the primary market can be sold in the secondary market if you need money. Suppose that I have purchased a stock from the primary market through the new issue, but I need to get the money after some time, then I can approach the secondary market for selling the stock. So therefore, means these organized markets, you can classify into two ways. One is money market, capital market, depending upon whether the money is traded for short period or long period. If it is for short period, then you have to approach the money market. If you need money for a long period, then you have to go to the capital market. Then if you have to get money freshly, if a company wants to get money fresh from the investors, then the company has to approach the primary market. And if investors need money by trading or by exchanging their stocks, then they have to go to the secondary market for that purpose. So secondary market ensures the liquidity for the shares traded in the primary market. Now we will discuss financial institutions. So financial institutions, we know that these are business organizations that act as mobilizers, depositors of savings, and as purveyors of credit or fees. So what are these financial institutions? Our definition goes like this. They are financial institutions are business organizations acting as mobilizers and depositories of savings and as purveyors or carriers of credit or finance. They also provide various financial services to the community. Then they differ from non-financial institutions. So we have institutions in two forms. One is financial institutions and second is non-financial institutions. So what are the features of the non-financial institutions? So business organization with respect to their wares, that's what it means. So the distinction between financial institution and non-financial institutions depends upon their mode of operations, depends upon their area of operation. For example, financial institutions' duty is to accept deposits, give loans, etc. But non-financial institutions deal in real assets such as machinery, equipment, stocks of goods, real estate, and so on. So financial institutions deal in financial assets like deposits, loans, securities, but non-financial institutions deal in machinery, equipment, stocks of goods, etc. For example, Ambani Group mainly engages in what is called non-financial dealings, in the sense that they produce goods, they engage in the production of goods. Reliance Petroleum or something. They mean, especially the Tata Group. So they are engaged. They are non-financial institutions because they deal in real assets. But banks are financial institutions because they deal in deposits, they deal in loan. So they deal in financial assets. Now, another classification of financial institutions goes like this: banking and non-banking financial institutions. So this is a very important distinction: banking and non-banking financial institutions. We must understand the difference between these two. According to one classification, financial institutions are divided into banking and non-banking ones. The banking institutions have quite a few things in common with the non-banking ones. So we know that both banking and non-banking institutions take deposits from people, take money from people, simply speaking, take money from people. For example, you can deposit money in a bank. At the same time, you can make deposits in Kerala State Financial Enterprises, KSFE. But KSFE is entirely different from a bank. That's the difference. So, but both institutions accept money from you. So that's why I say that these banking institutions and non-banking institutions have certain features in common, but there are certain distinguishing features. So now we need to understand what are the distinguishing features of the banking institutions. Then you will understand the difference between banking and non-banking institutions. Banking institutions participate in the economy's payment mechanism. That is, they provide transaction services. That's the first thing. Banking institutions engages in the economy's payment mechanism and they provide transaction services. You might have seen that only the banks can provide these code swiping machines. So when you go to certain shops, you will find code swiping machines. So these code swiping machines are operated by the banks. That means the banks, so credit card, debit card, they are issued by the banks. So banks engages in the payment system of the economy. But Kerala State Financial Enterprises cannot issue a credit card or a debit card. I mean, they are not authorized to issue that. But banks are authorized to issue credit card and debit card because banks are engaged in the financial or in an economy's payment mechanism. Then banks' deposit liabilities constitute a major part of the money supply. This is very important. So when you deposit money in a bank, that deposit constitutes a part of the money supply. But the deposits which you make in KSFE or a non-banking financial institutions do not become a part of the money supply. This is an important difference between banking institution and non-banking institutions. So deposits that we make with the banking institutions constitute a major part of the nation's money supply. This third difference is banks can create deposits or credit. And the deposits or credits that banks create, deposits or credit that banks create becomes a part of the money supply. Or banks have the power to create credit. That is why credit creation is a power entrusted with the banks. But that power cannot be enjoyed by non-banking financial institutions. So these are the three distinguishing characteristics of banking financial institutions from a non-banking financial institutions. First, banks participate in the economy's payment mechanism, whereas the non-banking financial institutions do not. Second, banks' deposits liabilities constitute a major part of the money supply, whereas non-banking financial institutions' deposits do not contribute a part of the money supply. Third, banks have the power to create deposit, which forms a part of the money supply, whereas non-banking financial institutions cannot create deposits, cannot create credit. Now, the distinction between the two has been highlighted by R.S. Sayer, by characterizing the former, that is banks, as creators of credit. So banks are creators of credit. And the latter, that is non-banking financial intermediaries, they are just carriers of credit. So that's an important difference. Banks create credit, whereas non-banking institutions just carry the credit. The banking system in India comprises the commercial banks and cooperative banks. The examples of non-banking financial institutions are life insurance corporation, mutual fund institutions, and non-banking financial companies. So banks and cooperative banks, commercial banks, they are the examples of financial institutions, banking financial institutions. But LIC, mutual funds, non-banking financial companies, they are the examples of non-banking financial institutions. Now, another difference or another classification of the financial institution is in between intermediaries and non-intermediaries. So you might have observed that there are intermediary financial institutions and non-intermediary financial institutions. Generally, all financial institutions are intermediaries because they take money from us, they give money to people as loan. So they act as intermediaries. But you can see a number of, although not a number of, but a few means non-intermediaries, non-financial intermediaries could be observed in every economy. So financial institutions are also classified as intermediaries and non-intermediaries. Intermediaries intermediate between savers and investors. They lend money as well as mobilize savings. Their liabilities are towards the ultimate saver, while their assets are from the investors. But non-intermediary institutions also lend money, but their resources are not directly obtained from the savers. For example, NABARD, National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, it lends money to the government, it lends money to the LSGs, local self-government. but it does not collect money from the people, because money to NABARD comes from the government. So that's why we say that these are financial institutions, because they lend money to the people. They take money from someone else, not necessarily from the people. So non-intermediary institutions also lend money, but the resources are not directly obtained from the service, ultimate service. All banking institutions are intermediaries, but many non-banking institutions also act as intermediaries. And when they do so, they are known as non-banking financial intermediaries. The non-intermediate institutions like IFC, Industrial Financial Corporation, NABARD, they don't come into existence because of government efforts to provide assistance for specific sectors and regions. NABARD is for specifically, it's for agriculture. IFC is for industry development, like that. Since they have been set up by the government, we would call them as non-banking statutory financial organizations. So they can also be called non-banking statutory financial organizations because they have been set up by the government.